Hello everyone, it's Joseph Dunphy here. It's Thursday the 17th of July 2025 and this is your weekly Grass10 grazing management update on the dairy edge. The pasture-based data for the week, the average farm cover is sitting at 686 kilos dry matter per hectare and the cover per livestock unit at 204 kilos dry matter per livestock unit. Growth's at 58, demand is at 51, the diet currently is 15 kilos of grass and 4 kilos of supplement and the pre-grazing yield is sitting at 1500. Grass growth predictions for the coming 7 days again are expected to be variable depending on the amount of rainfall that you've received. They're expected to be in the region of between 65 and 80 in the northern half of the country and between 45 and 60 in the south and the southeast. Predicted rainfall amounts are high for the coming week, with between 30 and 45 millimetres of rain expected for the north and the western seaboard, and 20 to 25 millimetres of rain expected for the south and the southeast. Soil temperatures are again expected to be high at between 16 and 17 degrees. It's very much a variable grass growing situation this week, depending on your location and the rainfall that you've received. When we look at the pasture-based data from this week's Grass10 newsletter, 48% of all farms are in surplus grass this week, with on average 248 kilos per livestock unit and an average farm cover of over 765. This is predominantly in the northern half of the country and the western seaboard. Grass growth again has been strong on these farms in particular this week, and there's one or two paddocks to be removed immediately for surplus bales. Target 160 to 180 cover per livestock unit, an average farm cover of between 6 and 700, and most importantly, focus on getting your cows into pre-grazing yields of 1400 of highly digestible grass. On these farms now, there's a huge opportunity to produce milk very cheaply by allocating 18 to 19 kilos of grass and reduce the meals to 1 to 2 kilos while keeping an eye on rotation length that it doesn't pass 20 to 21 days. Looking at the data again from this week's Grass10 newsletter, 18% of the farms, which is mainly on the south and southeastern coast, are tight on grass supply due to lack of rainfall, which is limiting grass growth. Some level of rainfall has been received, however, a high soil moisture deficit still exists. Rotation length must be held between 20 and 25 days, and try and hold your average farm cover above 550 kilos of dry matter per hectare if possible. Some farms, like our feature farmer, that are growing 30 to 40 kilos of grass won't be able to do this, but try and hold it there for as long as possible so that your grass supply is in a wedge shape and will respond quicker when rainfall is received. Other priorities are to remove stock, so any replacement heifers or calves off the milking platform where possible, graze second cut silage ground if the cover is less than 2,500. Supplementary feed is going to be needed on these farms as growth is below current herd demand, so try and match growth rate and demand by introducing meal and silage. Even if some rainfall has been received, increased levels of supplementation will be necessary for 7 to 10 days at the minimum, and fertiliser applications should be considered as growth rate and rain arrives. Can you complete further reseeding in 2025? A reseeded sward is capable of 15% higher production in the first 2 years compared to the farm average. A significant amount of this extra production happens in the spring and the autumn when you really need this extra grass. Now is an opportune time for farmers to consider extra reseeding given the level of grass growth, silage self-sufficiency and farm income that's there in 2025. The return on reseeding is fast. You're going to have your money back in about 2 years and it'll have a positive impact on farm profitability and animal performance. So aim to have any autumn reseeds that you're thinking about doing now, spray them in the next week and have them in by the end of the first week of August. Lastly, on this week's podcast, the Grass10 team and Pasture Base Ireland will host a webinar Monday the 28th of July at 7 p.m. to discuss all matters grazing infrastructure. Coming into August is an ideal time to review your grazing infrastructure and see is it correct for your current and future herd size. Myself and Paul Maher will be discussing appropriate pasture allocation and paddock size, optimising roadway condition on your farm, and water infrastructure requirements for your herd. So very topical for this time of year to review how the year has gone in terms of your farm infrastructure and look at improving it as we go through the autumn. So make sure you register for that webinar coming up, and the link is available across all our social media platforms and in this week's Grass10 newsletter. Our featured farmer this week is Joe Morrissey from Rastellan, County Cork. Joe is milking 102 cows. The diet currently is 8 kilos of grass, 6 kilos of meal, and 6 kilos of silage. The cows are milking 24 litres, 4.4 fat, and 3.63 protein. Current fertiliser is just over 20 units per acre is planned for this week of a 29.014 product. His average farm cover at the minute is 468, growth at 30 and demand at 30, cover per livestock unit 138, and the stocking rate is sitting at 3.38 livestock units per hectare. On his current management for this week, Joe hasn't got much rain so far and growth rates are low. He's trying to hold a 21-day rotation by feeding increased levels of meal and silage as pre-grazing yield is only sitting at 750 to 800 at the minute, so soil moisture deficits are having a big impact on this farm. Reseeding was completed on this farm on the 2nd of May. Establishment was very variable, with headlands more established than the remaining part of the fields. It received 20 units of nitrogen and it was sprayed for weeds in mid-June. He then grazed it in late June and again in mid-July. If you'd like to hear more from the Grass10 team, subscribe to the weekly Grass10 newsletter, which is available on the Grass10 page on the Teagasc public website. And the link to the newsletter is also available in the description of this podcast. We'd also like to thank the sponsors of the Grass10 campaign: AIB, Grass and Agro, Department of Agriculture, FBD and the Farmers Journal. This has been your Grass10 update, and I'll talk to you all next week.